distinguished themselves this week. In his Tuesday morning meditation, Conference Director Bob McGahey spoke of the imperative of legacy. And the one these servant leaders leave behind is a proud one. Not only for their professional command in chambers, for it was that, but for their genuine commitment to ensuring that your experience is the best it could possibly be. To a person, Tucker, Kathy, Tyler, Avi, Catherine, and Jake, these individuals truly love this conference. Together, they have infected us with their enthusiasm, inspired us by their honest character, their sincerity, and their transparent willingness to serve as a window for you to see your best selves this week, to be your best selves this week. And for those in this room who aspire to this post, be it tonight, be it next year, be it 3 years from now, know this. You don't get to become a presiding officer because you're good, but rather because you serve as a window for your fellow delegates through which they can imagine and achieve a brighter and better future for themselves, molded by character, caring, responsibility, honesty, integrity. Your presiding officers have emulated that for you this week. We have grown as a result. For that we are grateful. Delegates, your presiding officer, Tucker Schultz.
American cinema reached its unmistakable climax with the 1965 release of Rodgers and Hammerstein's masterwork, The Sound of Music. The chair is not in doubt. Those who have seen the film doubtlessly know the complete and utter happiness it brings even after watching it 10,000 times. And that was just by the time I turned 7. Like Sarah Palin in an election year, The Sound of Music is an unending fountain of delight and happiness. Tonight I think it has some special lessons for all of us. If at this point in the speech you are wondering, Tucker, where are you going with this? You are well entitled to. However, I have a plan. In my eyes, Kona and The Sound of Music could not go more happily hand in hand. It could be any number of things. Perhaps it is because the joy with which the Von Trapp children romp around in Salzburg in their curtain costumes is also the joy that we feel after we greet a long-lost friend on the porch of Lee Hall after a year spent apart. Perhaps it's because, rather than ideology, The Sound of Music tells us to sing our own song, one note at a time. But really, I think it is the movie's end where Kona belongs best. As the Von Trapp family treks intently into Switzerland, we are left with a very powerful message. Climb every mountain. It's a challenge, but its call is clear. This is what is begun at Kona every single year. As delegates, Kona looms imposing and insurmountable in the distance. And yet, here you all are. You did it. At the summit, the air is clear and sweet. Enjoy it. But those who think that the hike is over need only look out at the endless ridges and peaks visible from Lee Hall's porch to know that it has really just begun. There are mountains upon mountains, innumerable and large, and they are waiting for you. Take heart, though. Kona teaches us something else, and here I'll borrow poet Marion Wilson's words to express it. Our greatest fear is not that we are inadequate. It is that we are powerful beyond measure. Who, looking at the fearless fabulousness on flagrant display this week, could ever dream of your inadequacy? There's a reason that The Sound of Music ends with a shot of the family climbing uphill, and not safe and sound. It's because that's not life. The work goes on, ever and anew. Nor does Kona ever really come to a neat and snapshot finish. You have conquered this mountain, all others await. Having found our best selves, we do not do them justice if we simply resume life as usual. So go, set out. You know the way, and it is best traveled with a song. You have always made these hills come alive for me, this week and for the past 3 years. You are all my favorite things, and I thank you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you. You are all glad that my speech was significantly shorter than The Sound of Music, because this is what you were really waiting for. To introduce the first presiding officer. You could go 1,000 conferences on national affairs and never meet a delegate quite like this one again. It's really truly unfair, this delegate, because he represents a combination of all the things that I think we wish we had in ourselves. You need about 5 seconds to recognize his dazzling intellect. You need about 10 seconds to recognize that he has a heart the size of the sun. He cares about each and every person who comes through his path, and I have never been more blessed to have him in my life. But thirdly, you also realize that he has a fashion sense that is truly impeccable. I have seen him on the DC subway, dressed in a shirt, a vest, and in the most beautiful of canes, suitcases, and scarves. So it should come to no surprise to you that I'm going to announce, from the beautiful District of Columbia, Mr. Tom.
nothing is actually so amazing. It's just that we sort of create it as an amazing thing in our minds and project it onto each other. But actually, that's the most optimistic thing I can tell you. Because do you know what that means? That means that you can create it anywhere you are. You have the Blue Ridge spirit inside of you, and you can take it with you away from this mountain and forever wherever you go. I have had an amazing week. Every single day I've been amazed by you. Thank you. Thank you, delegates, so much for being brilliant and humble and friendly. You're so brave and passionate. Thank you to my fellow POs for truly the best week of my life. I sang a lot of songs, mostly about cats, oddly enough. Delegates, I'd like to call you to action. Take Kona with you. And most importantly, don't ever stop dissenting. The vocal minority is the single most important thing in a sustainable democracy. There are certain values which are easy to defend. There's a certain self-satisfaction in defending equality and respect. But there are other values which are more difficult to defend. Autonomy, moderation, prudence, even liberty sometimes, security. So I ask you, take up these values as well. Don't just follow a cause because you think it's progressive or politically correct. Think critically, and never be afraid to speak critically. Delegates, you have my heart. I love you all so much, and I love this conference. Thank you. Thank you 100 times. And now it is my truly great honor to announce the next exciting officer. I am so happy that I'm about to say this name, because this delegate is truly not one of the most amazing delegates I know, one of the most amazing people I know. He is brilliant, and yet extremely humble, and that's a rare combination. He is kind, and every single proposal he's brought to this conference, every single speech I've ever seen him make, has been abundantly genuine and sincere. He's always full of smiles, and he has an easy, friendly demeanor, and he is truly a presiding officer. I am so proud of this delegate. From the Garden State, Billy Daly!
Michael, sit down.
Presiding Officer Tyler Gross.
First, I'd just like to thank the delegate that woke me up in Lead Hall lobby this morning, because I tried to write my speech and fell asleep at 4 in the morning. So I put so much painstakingly time into the speech, I'm going to opt to just read it, because these words are the best I can give you. Last night, as I attempted to write this speech, endeavoring to speak emotions that I'm not yet able to understand, I found myself stretching for words that seem not to exist. A prisoner of limits of language, I was attempting to capture the fireflies in my blood, put them on the paper, and let the light illuminate this room. And then I decided that I'm going to be myself, whether my interpretation of myself resonates with anyone in the room or not, or I appear the deranged, indulgent product of an unordinary history. I must attempt to convey not just a message, but myself. And maybe in doing so, I can bring to conscious existence an unspoken common experience that exists here at this ridge. Some things I have confirmed in a strange process of reflection on Kona. That life has never truly been lived doing what others recommended that you do. That people do not find themselves between the hours of 9 and 5, and that beauty exists in the abstract. The human mind is beautifully infinite, and infinitely beautiful only when it has broken the shackles of the normative. Every time a member of this conference challenged my existence, breaking down the apparently static definitions that I gave for myself and others, intellectual bondage was severed. liberating me to become something anew, something the closer that I am meant to be. To you in this conference, I am indebted nothing short of who I currently am. Today, the final scene on this conference commences. Of this, I am not bitter. The ridge is a brief pause of perfection, but brevity is all one can ask of perfection. As the sun wanes on our horizon, it enlightens future landscapes. But before the future can be achieved, the present must be realized. I want to speak to you of that moment when you collapse, when your skin caves in and you are left with a more resolute image of yourself. Many of us later will describe this sensation as post-Kona depression. But it will happen throughout your life, when your heart is broken, or when you finally realize that you really will die someday. But it is only in these moments of bittersweet conclusion that our lives take form. Truth be told, I cannot tell you how to use this conference away from the mountains. Only you can answer that question for yourselves. And it's probably going to involve some pain. But you must do it, because it is only through staring at the end do we learn to live in the moment and learn who we are truly meant to be. Perhaps this will help. Carl Sagan speculates that human growth occurs with the gradual recognition that we are part of something larger. When we converge from all corners of this country to meet on this mountain and become a family, we begin to see that the components that seem to divide us do not define us. That we as a group are defined by the love that we extend to one another. That is my message and my parting plea. To harness the passion present on this mountain, turn it into love for others, and live your life desiring to come alive. This has been the greatest honor of my life, and I thank and truly love you all. I have the personal privilege of announcing this young woman that carries herself with such elegance and constant class that she turns caring into something more than a characteristic and into a personality, all while radiating confidence and intelligence. Truly a leader on the CLC. My dear friend for 2 years, from Missouri, Hannah Heinz.
Presiding Officer, Pavan Nag.
One week ago, I tried to speak to you about what this conference would do for you, the magic that you would experience in a week's time, something that I imagined that you could not imagine. What I also could not imagine was what this week did for me. I am humbled by everything I've heard from you delegates. I am humbled by the ideas, I am humbled by the passion, and most of all, I am humbled by the commitment that almost every single one of you have displayed constantly to not only better the communities, but the nation and the world that you live in, and to make sure that this world is a better place tomorrow for every single individual that lives within it. That is something that I'm truly proud and truly honored to have been a part of. But maybe for the first time in my life, I don't really want to talk about the ideas and the debate and the arguments. I want to talk about emotion. I want to talk about that thing that we call blue-ridge spirit, the thing that none of us can really talk about or explain or verbalize. People, psychologists, for example, Malcolm Gladwell in his book Blink, talk a lot about how the emotion, this gut feeling that we have sometimes is scarily accurate, something that our minds and our imaginations cannot understand. But really, if we think about it, that emotion, that thing that Kona has really taught all of us to be important, is something that has been truly important to our society forever. Our mothers have always told us to go with our gut, and every single time in plenary and GA, we involuntarily stand up and spirit finger because we are carried and powerfully, emotionally experience something because of the speaker. That is emotion. That is the Blue Ridge spirit. I think that our generation sometimes doesn't think about the importance of that emotion, doesn't necessarily realize that emotion is as powerful as it is. We think and are carried away by rationality, we are carried away by carefully deciding every single move we make. But often, not just scientifically, but it's very true and very clear from your experience here, I hope, it is that gut feeling that is the thing that will carry you through. I hope that this week you have learned more about that gut feeling and more about yourselves in the process. I hope you have learned that your gut feeling truly is going to power and push you to better this world, is truly going to push you to be a servant leader. I hope you have learned here at this conference that ultimately what is innerly going to motivate all of us as humans, as people, as individuals who care about others, is that drive to make this world a better place. And so I hope that when you go back to your communities, when you go back to your schools, when you go back to your universities, and for the rest of your lives, you think about that gut feeling, that servant leadership, that drive to make this world and make what this experience is for every single individual better. Because that, ultimately, is what will make our generation and this world the best that it's ever been. Thank you. I'm incredibly honored to have been able to serve and have this experience with all of you. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. But of course, the part we're all waiting for. I first met this delegate at his first year on the mountain, and it was instantly apparent, not just to me, but every single individual here, that he just could not literally stop smiling. This delegate has carried that trait for 3 years. In fact, earlier this week, while overseeing his committee, I had to stop him and tell him to stop being so nice. This delegate exhibits every single part of the Y4 core values. He's the most caring individual I know. He is incredibly honest. He is responsible. I'm just going to recite them all, but this guy is an exemplar of what the YMCA and what Kona truly model. Your next presiding officer from the Boulder State of Colorado, Ben Pop.
Presiding Officer, Catherine Ewing.
They say that home is where the heart is. That in life, you may come across an experience that has the power to impact and change you for a lifetime. This week, we have all accomplished something very special that cannot be repeated anywhere else. We have broken down the boundaries that society and our personal experiences have built up for us. And together, we have shown America and the world just exactly what we are capable of. Through every intense speech, non-technical and debatable question, and every time I said, "Delegate, please display your placard," you solidified my argument that America's best days are still ahead of her. Yes, it's true that Kona really does only come once a year. It's true that by this time next week, we will all be back into our regular routines of the summer. But as I stated before, home is where the heart is. And if Kona is in your heart, your journey does not end on that Lee Hall porch. The real journey begins as you spread out to different corners of America with your ideals, new friendships, and values to be the servant leaders that I know you are. On this mountain, we have the opportunity to be our best selves. And while it may be difficult in life to remain truly honest, you must remember your time during this week and the experiences you had that will help you with that charge. If there's one significant truth that I've learned in life, it's that time is of the essence. One moment, you're driving up the mountain, seeing glimpses of white building as you pass. And the next, you're sitting on a stage wondering, where did the time go?
Delegates, don't wait for that one special moment to arrive for you. It is your time, it is your job to go out into the world and seize the opportunity yourself. Seize the opportunity to make change. As stated by the character Meek Bees in the movie Freedom Riders, we are all ordinary people. But even an ordinary school teacher or housewife or teenager has the ability to turn on a small light in a dark room. And that is what we all must do. We all must find those dark rooms and begin turning on the lights for humanity, for the world, and for our generation. To be honest, it is still very hard for me to convey my true emotions to this amazing experience. To say that I am who I am today because of this conference would be an understatement. All I can say is that it has been the single greatest honor of my life to serve all of you this week. And every one of you has impacted me in ways that you cannot even imagine. It brings me no greater joy in life to serve a group of people that I am now honored to call my family. And although I'm not a firm believer in goodbyes, I am a believer in see you laters. So delegates, I'll see you later. I'll see you in Congress, in the Oval Office, in schoolhouses, corporations, but most of all, I'll see you change the world. Thank you. And now, it is my distinct pleasure to introduce the next presiding officer for the 2013 conference. I first met this delegate this year, and I observed a gentleman with fantastic servant leadership and a kind heart. I know 100% that he will be a fabulous leader for you all. From the MUN delegation, Alex White.
Love you, Alex.
Presiding Officer Jake Freed.
This great nation was born 236 years and 1 day ago. In that same year, 1776, a European historian named Alexander Tytler published a study of democracies throughout history in which he makes an interesting conclusion. I quote, "The average of the world's great civilizations before they decline has been 200 years. These nations have all progressed in this sequence, from bondage to great courage, from courage to liberty, from liberty to abundance, from abundance to complacency, from complacency to apathy, from apathy to dependency, and from dependency back again into bondage. This year, America exceeded the average lifespan for a democratic nation by 36 years. Where we might lie on this proposed spectrum could be the subject of a con-pro debate for which we do not have the time. But in my humble opinion, Americans currently stand somewhere among the dangerously final stages of complacency, apathy, and dependency. We are hurtling toward a future in which we will inevitably relinquish our hard-fought freedoms to the gods that our society has chosen to worship: comfort, fear, conformity. we seem to have forgotten how crucially the development of our people has depended upon our discomfort, our refusal to fear, and our tolerance and celebration of nonconformity. This historian's theory offers a bleak outlook for the future of the United States of America. But it was crafted before there even was a United States of America. While Professor Tytler was writing in Scotland, our forefathers across the pond were contemplating, innovating, and most importantly, mobilizing. Though today's USA might seem poised on the edge of completing a trip through his cycle, I have full faith that the unique spirit that inspired the birth of our nation can once again inspire a generation to think, dream, and act. America is like no other country on earth. If anyone can prove this cycle false, it is us. It is you. Kona is a unique place. There are no spirit fingers in the real world, and it takes more than a simple request to the chair to reserve your rights. After the conclusion of tonight's ceremonies, you will return home, and if you're like me, you will miss this mountain more than anything in the world. But so long as you keep the knowledge you have learned this week in your head, so long as you keep the passion you have expressed in your heart, so long as the Blue Ridge spirit remains a part of your soul, you will always be a Kona delegate. And as you have all proved this week, Kona delegates do not sit passively while liberty dies. We raise our placards and our voices to combat ignorance and stagnation on the issues facing our generation. We look toward the future with both optimism and caution, refusing to inherit the outdated and short-sighted mentalities of today's elected officials. And above all, we work together, looking beyond partisan lines and state borders in our quest for truth. May we never forget the experiences and friends we have made in this place. May each and every one of us remember that it is our responsibility to our democracy to reject soundly dependency, apathy, and complacency. And may the spirit of this great nation survive to see 1,000 more 4th of July. Thank you. At this time, it is my honor to announce the next presiding officer for 2013. Though this delegate was not from my home state, I almost felt like they could have been, for how much I truly enjoyed getting to know them and watching them grow more than anyone I know over the last 3 years we spent together on the mountain. Okay, I lied. Your next PO is from the Golden State, Miss Haley!
Congratulations to your 2012 and 2013 classes of providing.